Hello, my name is Lindsay Gilbert, and today I want to talk to you about borderline personality disorder and also about diversity in fiction as regards to disabled and neurotypical characters and writers. So, to begin with, part one, the first video, I want to talk a little bit about BPD, the illness. I have a story that has been accepted for publication in an anthology called Steampunk Universe, which is currently on Kickstarter trying to raise the funds to get the book out there. This anthology idea is obviously not only steampunk but also aims to represent characters who are neurotypical or disabled. It's caused a lot of controversy in terms of whether or not people without disabilities or people that are neurotypical should be allowed to write about characters that are disabled or neurotypical as the main protagonists. Now, I saw the call for submissions and I was very excited because I thought it was a really brilliant idea. And of course I asked myself, am I neurotypical enough? Am I disabled enough to write about this or to submit a story to this? And after talking about it with my friends, they helped to assure me that yes, I was, and that even if I wasn't, that I would of course research and before I write about anything, understand and hear the experiences of people that have actually gone through it before writing it. Now, my story involves main character with BPD. BPD is borderline personality disorder. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. If you have, I'm willing to bet that you have a very negative view of borderline personality disorder. The stigma of this disorder is absolutely massive. There is stigma surrounding many mental health disorders. Most mental health has stigma attached to it, but with borderline personality disorder, this stigma is extremely harmful and extremely hurtful. Let's start, of course, with the name of the illness itself, borderline personality disorder. This came about because a long time ago, a professor or psychologist was, looking at his patients and he was managing to split them into two groups, one psychotic, one neurotic. Then he had this group of patients which he couldn't comfortably fit into either psychotic or neurotic, as they may have been displaying symptoms of both those things, occasional psychotic tendencies and neurotic tendencies also. So obviously he put them on the borderline. Now, the other issue with the name of the disorder is the fact that it's a personality disorder, which means that you think or you hear it and you feel that, oh my God, am I disordered? Is there something wrong with my personality, which is my innate being? Which is a very difficult thing to hear. Whenever I was given the diagnosis, I railed against this diagnosis because I had in my mind, and a vision of it, that people with it were harmful, hurtful. And also, of course, the usual Glenn Close from Fatal Attraction character that people with borderline personality disorder are mental bunny boilers and also terrible abusive mothers, and in fiction they will continually come up. The term borderline personality disorder will come up quite a lot in thrillers and detective fictions and things like that. Now, the causes of the illness. The illness, borderline personality disorder, has been seen through brain, scanning techniques that people with the disorder display or have a type of brain. They have the part of the brain which creates emotion is overactive, and the part of the brain that is supposed to quell emotion or to filter it, help control it, is underactive. So that's a bit of a clusterfuck in a way. So what comes out then are people with extreme sensitivity and extreme emotional reactions to things. And also, not only do we see that with the brain, but we also see that people with the disorder tend to have come from a history with 70% of people with it having been abused, whether emotionally, physically, sexually. And also that people with the disorder have been invalidated. Now, this invalidation is extremely important when it comes to the diagnosis of the disorder and understanding where it came from and where it's going. It is the invalidation of your emotions when you're a child. When you feel the way that you feel, which is extremely sensitive and extremely emotional, others around you, like siblings, parents, teachers, friends, will see your emotional reactions and they will tell you that they are over the top, that you're attention seeking, that you're a drama queen, that you're a fake, many, many, many types of things, that you'll be told about this innate reaction, these feelings that inside you feel massive. They feel like a force, an uncontainable force. Now, you can see then you've been invalidated your whole life because of these emotions, and then you're given a disorder called borderline personality disorder, which in itself is massively invalidating. And there's been drives to change the name of the illness to emotionally unstable personality disorder, emotionally intense personality disorder. It kind of feels like you're back in the Victorian era and you're being, told that you're hysterical and, you're an hysterical woman and you need to sort yourself out. You need to calm down, like a couple of slaps across the face. Calm down, woman. That is further worsened by the fact that the illness is mainly diagnosed in women, with men being diagnosed more commonly with antisocial personality disorder. And a lot of the times that's because men will act in an aggressive way because they're allowed to act in an aggressive way, whereas women will act in a more openly emotional way, sometimes manipulative way, because it's not acceptable for them to react the way that men are allowed to react to things. So not only that, but also knowing that there's so much trauma in the past of people with the disorder, it is often mixed up there with PTSD, complex PTSD and prolonged PTSD, because these people have experienced, due to the way that they view the world, the way that they feel inside, they have been subjected to consistent trauma. Now, this then leads me, to the idea of individuality among people with borderline personality disorder. The stigma is that we are manipulative to the extreme, that we are completely over emotional and controlling and hard to live with and aggressive and in all types of ways, like Glenn Close's character Bunny Boilers, and that we should be avoided at all costs. Now, there are like two types people think of borderline, where you've got outward acting borderline and inward acting borderline, sometimes known as quiet borderline. I would more easily fit in the quiet borderline category because I am very inward acting. I respond to my emotional feelings by punishing myself privately via self-harm to the extreme, in the form of cutting. And when I was 12, I was actually breaking my own nose repeatedly in private, just because at that point I realized that whenever I felt pain, it helped me control it. It also made me feel like I got what I deserved for being this person, this person that didn't act normal, wasn't like everybody else. I felt that I was punished then for being a drama queen, for being overreactive, for being all those types of things, and then it helped me. But in the end, of course, it led to so much of my life so far being blighted by self-harm and by the suffering that I've experienced with this illness. Borderline personality disorder is often comorbid with mood disorders. Sometimes it is not comorbid with any of these disorders, but quite often it is, and you'll get comorbidities when the disorders sort of react to come together, and I have major depressive disorder interacting with my borderline personality disorder, which means that I experience episodes of complete depression, where my moods are not, going up at all. They're kind of just down and on a low level consistently. Borderline, more typical borderline personality traits would be someone who is going up and down, and in a matter of hours or days, going from being suicidal to being, manic happy. I never reach the mania. I never have that type of borderline. I'm just kind of always low on, if this is normal, I'm always sort of acting on a low space, and then I dip very, very, very low into suicidal feelings and actions, and have in the past attempted suicide several times, many of which were severe attempts where I've ended up needing 37 stitches, and I've been hospitalized a number of times for the disorder. Obviously this is really hard to talk about, and I wanted to make a video on BPD for quite a long time. What's really pressed me into it today was looking at the Kickstarter for the anthology and seeing, Stephen being questioned again about whether or not he should be making an anthology where only that we know of 50% of people are actually neurotypical or disabled that are writing the stories. It kind of prompted me to want to write this, or to actually make this video. And also, because I'm having a very difficult time right now, I have basically been confined to the sofa in the living room, and I haven't been washing or putting on makeup, and I did think, if I want to make a video, I'm going to have to go and pretty myself up and make myself look half decent, and I'm not able to do that today. I'm not able to go and take a shower due to the fact that I have immense feelings of hatred toward my body, and if I take a shower, it's going to provoke my self-harm urges, and I need to keep myself safe, so I'm not. So you've got these two types of borderline: outward acting, inward acting. A lot of time people want to be seen as the quiet borderline because they're the ones that aren't acting out, aren't being aggressive towards other people, aren't trying to manipulate other people so outwardly, aren't, don't behave violently, all those sorts of things. And people with the quiet borderline tend to feel superior to the people with the outward acting borderline, and you'll find the quiet borderline romanticized to a massive degree on Tumblr and places like that, where you've got, this picture of this beautiful girl you're looking off to the screen, and then some sort of quote about, you don't know me, you don't understand what I'm going through every day, and it's just, or a Sylvia Plath quote, and it's, you understand, like, it's romanticized. I am not looking off into the distance right now, thinking in those types of terms. I just have really disgusting greasy hair, and I haven't washed, and my lips are a bit dry and all sore because I have not been drinking or eating properly, and it's not pretty, and it's not romantic. It's just basically horrible. Now, I feel, I don't know actually whether or not I really will release this video that I'm making right now, because the stigma that I'm describing to you is so strong that I am ashamed, even though I know I shouldn't be ashamed, that I am ashamed that I suffer with this disorder, and I fear that people will think differently of me when they hear that I have this disorder, which sometimes happens, which has happened even with professionals who are supposed to be trained to help me. And I've been to training, cuff training, where people are trained, people that work with borderline personality disorder patients are given extra training to help them understand, because they have so many bad and incorrect views of people with the disorder, and when they see someone on their case list with it, they throw their hands up and they think, oh God, what am I going to do? I really just don't want to be having to do with this person, because they don't want to get help, and they won't get help, and they'll never change, because there's also this idea that going around that it's not helpable, that it's not healable, that people with this disorder will never learn how to manage it and how to live normal, productive lives. So I also feel that I want to mention that being given this disorder, when I said earlier about, you know, the hysteria, slap in the face, bring yourself, you pull yourself together woman type of thing, there is in our society a worship of logic and a kind of, you know, put down of emotion as childish and womanish. So when you're given that disorder, you do think, well, someone like me who's a feminist and who has obsessed with Victorian era and things like that and has studied literature at university, and also I'm an English teacher, my brain does go toward, you know, thinking about this as a this illness is another way of just belittling and making you feel ashamed and making you feel like you're just a uncontrollable woman that needs to, you know, get her act together. So when I wrote my story for the anthology, I wanted to kind of explore that idea. Not to say that borderline personality disorder doesn't exist and it's like it's just hysteria in another name. I sometimes feel like that. I sometimes reel against, like I say, the diagnosis, and I feel angry about the diagnosis, and I just want to back away and distance myself from it. But then I understand when I'm reading a self-help book that is actually empathetic and compassionate and understanding, then I do realize I have this disorder and I need help, and I'm trying to help myself. What's not helpful is when people invalidate or people use the stigma and don't question the stigma of the illness. It is such to the point that the last few weeks I have been wrestling with suicidal feelings. I do that quite often, but it gets bad at certain points. And at this, I went on Amazon and I tried to find a book to help me. I saw a book come up that was on KDP, so I could download it for free since I have a Prime membership. And I thought it said how to survive borderline, and I thought that's great. That might be look into the suicidal feelings of people with the disorder and give them some help. 1 in 10 people, 10% of people with the disorder go on to complete suicide, and I thought then this must maybe be addressing that specific part of BPD. When I downloaded it and then I looked closer and I opened it and I realised it was how to survive someone with BPD. So it's for people without BPD to survive someone with BPD. So you can imagine then feeling suicidal and feeling this level of self-hatred, how that felt, to be reaching out for help and to find this with all its reviews on Amazon. Would you find that sort of, you know, those sort of books, if I looked up how to survive living with a partner with cancer or with lupus or with some other severe illness? No, you wouldn't. People wouldn't dare write those sorts of books. And if they did bring those books out, the level of outrage would be massive. But for people with borderline personality disorder, we are expected to just accept that people will do that people will open entire websites which are basically dedicated to talking about how worthless you are. Being someone who's very into the internet and would use the internet for self-help a lot, and when I did get the diagnosis and I did go on for help, I found many sites saying with articles such as how to train your borderline, you know, about a man having a borderline personality disorder girlfriend and how you can train her to act more to his liking, like a dog. And that's not even the worst of the things that you will come across. I got told I should get basically spayed like a dog too, so that I wouldn't have children and then I wouldn't fuck up those children. So as someone who has endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome on top of these things, that also really upset me. And obviously I found that there are avenues that I used to rely on to reach out for help are not necessarily avenues that I have anymore. All I have are the professionals that work with me, and all I have are the people that are willing to compassionately listen and understand. There's not just one type of person there's not just like a whole group of people with the same personalities, and that's borderline personality disorder. There's 256 ways that the disorder itself can present. And on top of those 256 ways, there's also the individual who is unlike anyone else in the world, who is a complete individual. So you have, or those people have no right to cluster me together and make a judgment on me for this disorder, but I fear that they do. I think I maybe mentioned earlier that I'm a teacher. My disorder has destroyed my career, not because people know about that I have borderline personality disorder. In fact, I really don't tell people that, because I fear, not only fear how they will look at me, I'll also fear that what if I do improve and I am able to go back to work and I want to go to teaching, and then people know I have this disorder. I got my degree and my PGCE, which is the postgraduate teaching certificate that you need here in the UK to teach high school level, and I have done several years of teaching. But because of the illness, because of the suicidality and the self-harm that's going on behind the scenes to help me deal with the stresses of the job, I burn out. I'm seen as a really good teacher. I get outstanding, when people observe my lessons, I get rated outstanding. But every single time I go to one of those, I feel that I'm about to be seen through, that I'm an imposter who isn't really good at this stuff, and that I'm about to be found out, and living under that level of inner scrutiny and fear eventually just completely wears you out, and you're not able to carry on teaching. And you look around you, all the other teachers, and teaching is stressful and everybody's stressed out. So when you say that you're stressed out to a colleague, they just feel the same way. Oh, I know what you mean, I'm stressed out too. But they don't necessarily know what I mean. They may do, but they don't necessarily understand what I'm actually going through in there. And that is quite often hiding in my classroom at lunch and break, hiding where if another teacher looks into my classroom, they'll not see me and they'll therefore not invite me to the staff room, and I just hide just to give myself 15 minutes where I try and focus my brain. Then what would happen is the children would come in and the classroom door would close, and I would feel able in that moment to do this, because this is my passion. Literature is my passion, and I get to work with these kids and we have a great time, and I don't feel judged by them, and I feel that I can put myself for that hour into that lesson and forget everything else. But as soon as the children walk out and I have a free period, all the stuff has come crashing down on me again, and I feel the need to hurt myself. So my illness has, I feel, stolen the person that I thought I was, and the person that I wanted to be. And I'm turning 30 next week, and this self-harm, this hospitalizations, and this hell has blighted my 20s, and I'm afraid I'm going into my 30s with it. And that's not a nice prospect. And the disorder itself makes you feel like a failure no matter what you have accomplished. Your accomplishments mean nothing in the face of that voice in your head that is continually berating and belittling you. And not only is that voice in your head, but you see it around you everywhere, on the websites, on the books that you're looking up for help, and it makes you feel like you're not a worthwhile person, and that you're probably better off not being in this world. So this video then is looking at the stigma of BPD, the causes, the name of the illness, those sorts of things. If you want to learn more about BPD, because I've really literally just skimmed the surface here, in order for you to understand more so the stigma and how the disability has affected me, but that you want to see what it's like for people with the lighter type of borderline or anyone else, then I will put some links below that I know are decent places that are going to give you accurate, non-biased information.